There's a Ruby script called the Align tool, which helps with tricky alignments such as this one. I'd like to stack this cylinder on top of that box, and I'd like to do it from the center here and put it right there on the center of the box. I'll go up to the Preferences and load this as an extension. And then I'll go ahead and select the object that I want to move. In this case, it's the cylinder. Then I'll go to the Tools menu and choose Align. The way that this script works is you have to click a total of 6 points. The first 3 points determine a coordinate system on the start object, the one that you're going to move. And then the next 3 points are on the target object. So we start with the origin point, and then the x-axis, and then the y-axis. The blue axis here is up. Now it's asking for the end origin, so I'm going to go over here and click this point, and then I'll click the end x-axis and the end y-axis, and the objects are immediately aligned. Quite a useful script when you have tricky alignments such as this one. It saves a bunch of steps of moving and rotating with strange angles, and it's very similar to the AutoCAD Align tool, which I think was the inspiration for this script. This video is about SketchUp's built-in divide tool and the divide with construction points script. Let's say we're building a stair. I'll start by drawing a rectangle representing an individual step in plan. I'll make that 11 inches deep, 3 feet wide. Then I'll draw a line off to the side someplace in the blue direction that measures the height of the stair. Let's call that 9 feet for this demonstration. I'll right-click on this line and choose Divide. As I move the mouse, you'll see a different number of red dots appear, and you can see the number changing down here in the Measurements toolbar. As I come down here, you'll see if I hold the mouse still, you'll see a tooltip that gives the actual length of an individual segment. A good rule of thumb is 7/11, so the riser height is 7 inches and the tread depth is 11 inches. We're not going to get it exactly 7. 7 and 3/16 sounds pretty good. So I'm going to click right here to divide the line into that number of segments. You can verify this just by deselecting and then clicking on an individual segment. You'll see that these are now separated. Now making the stair works like this. I'll go ahead and push-pull this up, and I'll go over to the side and reference this endpoint. Then I'll select this step and turn it into a component. I'll press G to make a component, and I'll call this step, create as a component, and then go to the Move tool by pressing M. Click in this lower corner to pick up the step from this point. I'll press the Option key to leave the original behind, and then I'll click on the opposite corner to connect the copy there. And then I need a number of steps, all arrayed in the same angle, so I'll just type in 12x. Now I'd like to see that in an elevation view, so I'll press Command 4, and then press J to go into parallel projection mode. It looks like I need a couple more steps. Let's try 13x. It's not quite there. I guess it's 14x. Just pan over here. And that looks correct. Okay. Now I'll press J to go back into perspective mode. This is quite a chunky staircase. I'd like to have gaps in between the individual treads. So I'm going to double-click on this component to enter it. I'll orbit underneath, press P for the push-pull tool, and then I'll click on this lower face and move it up. And there we have it. The divide with construction lines is a script that you need to load. It comes from the Ruby Library Depot. And it works in a similar way to the divide tool, except you have the option of putting in construction points rather than individual segments like we did originally. Let me just go ahead and draw in another line that's 9 feet high. This time I'll right-click on it and choose Divide with Construction Points, 13. And if I say no, it's just going to put in construction points. And the segment remains intact. This can be useful from time to time. If I said yes at that question in the dialog box, it would actually cut these at the construction points, very much like the divide command does. SketchUp can calculate complex intersections between objects, and this is essential when you get into advanced modeling. Please open up the intersection SketchUp file to follow along with this video. We have a joist resting on two circular rafters, and there's also a cone here representing a volume that I want to cut away from the joist. Select the joist, right-click, and choose Intersect with Model. This intersects the object with everything else, and profile lines and edges are created here. In X-ray mode, you'll see that there are profiles on both sides and at this complex intersection where the joist interferes with the rafter. If I hide the cone and hide the joist, you'll see that these profiles are separate from these groups. And this is not really my intention. I didn't merely want to create profiles floating in space. I wanted to create them inside the joist group so that I could use them to cut away a portion of the joist. I'm going to undo several times to go back to the initial state of the model. So we need to approach this problem in a different way. One approach is to put the cone into the joist group so that we can intersect within the context of the joist. It's really easier than it sounds. I'll select the cone and cut it to the clipboard by pressing Command X. Then I'll double-click on the joist to enter the joist group. Press V to paste the cone in place so that the cone is in exactly the same position, but now it's inside the joist group. Then I'll triple-click on the joist to select all the connected faces and edges, right-click, and choose Intersect with Context. Now we have thin profile edges, representing the fact that these are now internal edges. I'm going to select the cone and press H to hide it temporarily. I'll also press Shift-G to hide the rest of the model so that I can focus on the joist group. I'll press P to access the Push-Pull tool, and I'll push this face back. I'll use the eraser to get rid of this edge, and I've succeeded in cutting away that arc. I'll double-click out here to close the group. You can also pre-select objects that you want to intersect. For example, select the joist, hold down Shift, and select this far rafter. Right-click and choose Intersect Selected. This will create bold profile edges here. You can see that in X-ray mode. I'll just hide the joist and hide the rafter, and you'll see that those profile edges are separate. That really wasn't my intention here. Let me just erase that and go back, unhide. In this case, I can explode this rafter temporarily, hold down Shift, and select the joist, so that we have a selection set which includes the geometry that you want to cut and the geometry that's doing the cutting. Right-click, Intersect Selected. This time we're going to get internal edges. Let me just zoom in there. You can see that a little better here. Now I can regroup the rafter by triple-clicking to select everything and just press Command-G to make a group. So just to recap, you can intersect the entire model with itself, you can intersect a selection, or within the modeling context of a group or component.